All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to take a look at humanity's long and, let's be honest, pretty disturbing history of getting really, really creative when it comes to killing each other. Yeah, it's a bit grim, but it's also absolutely fascinating. So, let's get into it. I mean, it's kind of true, right? Since day one, we've basically been arguing over who's got the bigger stick and then, hitting each other with that stick. It's been our go to move for problem solving for thousands of years. But as our brains got bigger, just jumping out from behind a rock wasn't really cutting it anymore. We had to get creative. We started inventing tools, and not just for farming or building, but tools designed specifically to wipe our fellow humans off the map with some pretty chilling efficiency. So, for our first stop on this tour of creative carnage, we're going way back to ancient Egypt. Now imagine you're a soldier for the pharaoh. The weapon you're about to face isn't just some basic sword, oh no. You're up against this thing, the Kopesh. It's like someone took an axe and a giant, scary hook and mashed them together. This weapon was a nightmare in close combat. That unique curve could hook a guy's shield right out of his hands, or just deliver this devastating blow. It was terrifyingly effective, especially against enemies like the mysterious sea peoples. Okay, so you're on the receiving end of a Kopesh swinging at your head. What's the plan? What's your survival strategy here? How do you walk away from that battle? Well, here's the grim reality. You probably don't. See, in ancient warfare, unless you were the king or some legendary hero, you were basically just an extra in someone else's epic story. You were a nameless background character, forgotten the second you hit the dirt. All right, let's jump way forward in time. We're moving on from pure brute force and into the world of chemistry. We're talking the Middle Ages, a time when alchemists were mixing up all sorts of strange stuff, trying to figure out the secrets of the universe. And get this, their two main goals were turning lead into gold and, kind of ironically, finding the secret to eternal life. But somewhere in all their failed experiments, someone had the wild idea to mix up some sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate. And the result wasn't immortality, it was black powder. And with that one accidental discovery, warfare was never ever going to be the same. And this, right here, tells you the whole story. All of a sudden, spending 20 years of your life learning how to swing a sword didn't matter so much. That ridiculously expensive suit of armor? Useless, because now some peasant with a cheap iron tube and a few weeks of training could take down an elite knight from a safe distance. The whole age of chivalry was about to get a very rude awakening. So the entire rulebook for war just got thrown out the window. Which brings us back to our favorite question. How do you stay alive in this new age? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. Your best bet is to stop being the guy in the giant, shiny, expensive target. Yeah, that armor that used to be your biggest advantage, it's now basically a heavy steel coffin. And now we take our final, biggest leap forward. We're going to the Industrial Revolution. This is where the art of killing goes from a craft to a factory assembly line. This is where combat becomes industrial-scale slaughter. Okay, so picture this. It's the late 1800s. The British Empire is pushing its way into Sudan. And on September 2nd, 1898, it all comes to a head at a place called Omdurman. Now, if you just look at the numbers, you'd think the Sudanese had this in the bag. They had more than double the soldiers. But this wasn't going to be a battle of numbers. Nope. It was a battle of technology. The Sudanese warriors charged forward with swords and spears. The British, well, they brought 40 Maxim machine guns. The result was an absolute massacre. In just a few hours, the Sudanese forces suffered 11,000 casualties. And on the British and Egyptian side, fewer than 50. Let that sink in for a second. The disparity is just mind-blowing. The machine gun hadn't just changed the battle, it had completely redefined what war even was. So we have to ask our question one last time. When you're faced with that kind of automated, mechanized death, what on earth is the survival strategy? You run as fast as your legs can carry you, and you learn the single most important lesson of modern warfare: you never, ever bring a sword to a machine gun fight. So as we look back at this whole journey, you start to see a pretty clear and pretty disturbing pattern emerge, right? A long road from the blade to the bullet, from personal combat to totally impersonal destruction.
Really, it's all about distance. We went from having to look your opponent in the eye while you swing a Khopesh to just relying on a chemical reaction to shoot a piece of lead, all the way to standing behind a machine and wiping out thousands without even getting your hands dirty. And that's the real takeaway here. Our amazing, relentless innovation hasn't just made us better at killing, it's made the act itself feel more abstract, more detached, which makes it psychologically way, way easier to do on a massive scale.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of chilling question to think about. We've seen the path from a sword to a trigger, and each step created more and more distance. But that process isn't over. So what happens when the next big technological leap makes pulling a trigger seem as intimate and personal as a sword fight once did? What new horrors does that kind of detachment make possible?